Hello, this is Sarah V, and today I am going to be making another blouse. I am going to be making Simplicity 8736, and I am going to be making View D. The fabric I am using is a floral rayon that I got at Fabricmart a couple years ago. I think it will be very cute. And this blouse buttons down the back. This pattern is actually one of the first patterns I made when I first started sewing, and I changed it to a front closure, so it wasn't fantastic, but I am happy to be able to make it and actually know what I'm doing this time. I ironed this fabric a few days ago and hung it up on a random hanger that came with a blanket. This helped it to get minimal wrinkles after ironing. After lining up the fabric and smoothing it out, I can start laying my pattern pieces out. I am starting with the front of my blouse, followed by my collar pieces. Next, I am cutting out the back pieces and that wee bit of front facing on the fold. In my last chunk of fabric, I am cutting out my sleeves and tie. I am marking out the tucks by putting pins through the pattern and using them so I know where to mark the tucks from the inside with chalk. After they are marked, I connect the marks with a straight edge. After pinning all my darts, I can head over to my machine. At the machine, I am sewing up all 4 front tucks, the 2 back neck darts, and the 4 back tucks. The only ones I tied off by hand were the neck darts. Over at the ironing board, I am pressing the front tucks towards center front and the back neck darts and waist tucks towards center back. At the machine, I am putting the gathering stitches in the front shoulders between the notches. Off camera, I gathered the front shoulders into the back shoulders, and now I am sewing them together, followed by sewing the side seams. At the ironing board, I am pressing the shoulder seam allowance up using my tailor sausage to get into the shoulder, and then pressing the side seams over. It is now time to sew the side seams of the neck facing. After being sewn, it can be pressed open and trimmed to reduce bulk. Back at the machine, I am sewing up the collar pieces. At the ironing board, I am trimming my seam allowances, clipping the curves, and then turning the collar pieces out and pressing them into place. I've made this pattern 3 times prior to this. The first time I made it out of some quilting cotton that had maps on it, and I changed it to a front opening, and it It was special. It gaped a lot in the front, and I put little gear buttons on it, and it was the same view as I'm doing here. The second time I used a remnant and had to use a second fabric to even get it all cut out, and it had like little flowers on it. I am now stitching the neck facing to the placket at 1/4 inch. Afterwards, I was able to pin the collar in, followed by the facing, and once sandwiched together, I ran it through the machine. I kind of went with the scrap vibe of the second one and used some scrap for piping. It was like a pink color, and I did the bow in that color, and it matched the flowers in the pattern. And then the sleeves were white, and it was the same view. Before doing my understitching, I am clipping the seam allowance, but I ended up trimming it later because it was kind of bulky. Onto the sleeves, I can start by sewing up the underarm seams. Afterwards, I gave them a wee hem because I figured it would be easier to do it before it was attached. Next, I pinned the sleeves in and sewed them in. Onto the hem, I am sewing the placket at the bottom, right sides together at 5/8 of an inch. After turning the placket back out, I pinned in a hem and sewed it in place. After 6 buttonholes, I sewed on all the buttons and tacked the bow on. Overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out, and because I added 2 extra inches in length, the tucks are actually at the right spot. For the first time I've made this pattern. This is the 4th time I made it, and it's the first time I get to enjoy the fact that the tuck makes its very own tuck. This only ended up taking me about 5 hours to make, so that's really exciting. I haven't busted out a project in less than a day for half a moment, so that's really cool. And my buttonholer didn't get any oil on it this time for any of my buttonholes. And since it's rayon, it's also like nice and soft, so that will be good for summer and spring. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you'd like to see more sewing content, please subscribe. If you would like to see what I'm up to day feel free to follow me on Instagram at Sarah V Sews Vintage. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.